Welcome to Among the Lilies. Caroline, it's so nice to have you. Welcome to Among the Lilies.
Thank you. Thanks.
It's
so glad to be here.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks. And I have a little friend also.
I love it. I love that he's here with us.
Yes.
And on the outside, not just the inside.
I know.
I feel like when y'all walked up, I'm just not used to seeing him. Like, I'm used to seeing y'all, but not him.
Yes.
On the outside of the womb,
I know. It's been, I think 9 days, so.
Still brand new.
It's brand new. Exactly.
Yeah, is it becoming more, 9 days, is it becoming more real for you? I mean, you're not sleeping through the night, I'm sure, and...
Yeah. I know. I still have those moments of surreal surprise that he just, I feel like I haven't really been out of the house yet with him, and so contemplating leaving today, I was like, oh yeah, I'll have to do the car seat and the whole production, which it's been so long since I've done that, so still settling in and mentally adjusting.
Yeah.
It's such a gift.
Well, I know you are a dear friend and a neighbor, but why don't you go ahead and just kind of introduce yourself a little bit to my listeners?
Yeah, sure. So I live across the street from Cameron. My husband's a professor at the university, and we have 3 other children, roughly the same ages as your span. And in a lot of ways, I feel like you're like a long-lost sister or cousin or something, because we just have so many parallel tracks in our lives, with our husbands both being expats, loving Aquinas, kids the same age, similar health issues,
and kind of all the poop hitting the fan at the same time. Exactly. With all the health stuff.
Yeah, very much so. And not just similar health things, but the same condition. So it's been such a great support, and just source of understanding to have you across the street. And
he is getting chubby.
He is, isn't he? Just.
Can I hold him?
Of course.
Oh my goodness! Come here, little man. Oh, he's so perfect. Oh, you're so perfect. Yeah, and I think getting here to Steubenville at the same time, I think a lot of people confused us, and then also confused which kids belong to which one of us.
Yes.
Because we try to have bad days on opposite days.
Yeah.
So when one of us is having a good day, they take all the kids.
Yes.
And then even going to mass, I feel like people are like, wait, which kids?
I know.
Who belongs to which one?
I know. It's so great that, it's just a troop of kids wherever either of us goes, and we can trade off.
The McFradlets.
Yes. The kids did a play a few days ago with this a little nativity production, and they wrote out programs, and at the top it said the McFradlets,
which I just
Christmas
love.
Play.
It was so great because they have their own unique identity.
Yes.
And they don't line up gender and age, but pretty much ages line up. But I also just love that it's not like these 2 go off or those 2 go off. They love being together, the 6 of them.
It's like a pod.
Yeah.
We just send them outside.
Yes, which is so great.
Yes.
And I also think it's just refreshing. I feel bad. I was telling someone, whenever anyone asks how I like Steubenville, and I'm like, it's great, I love it, but I feel bad that I haven't been able to be the friend that I normally am to someone coming in and then having all my health stuff. I feel like so often I was the one that was like, I need help, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel bad. And I also feel bad canceling on people, but I love that you totally get it.
Yes, 100%. And it's the same. I know if you come over and I'm upstairs and can't come down or whatever it is, that, it's just total understanding. And it's been so good.
Yeah, what is some of the things, so I gave a talk recently, and then also there's just been a lot of stuff with just suffering and chronic pain and autoimmune stuff, and we are the queen of being allergic to everything.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things we can't have that are the same, which I find, which is nice and easy to cook for each other.
Yeah. it makes it so easy to get together and
Yes.
share cookies. and
Yes,
things.
yes, fun drinks and cookies that like you don't have to be like,
Yes.
oh wait, I can't have sugar. Oh, I can't have grains. I can't
Exactly.
have sugar. Yeah, any of the things. So it makes it easier, which is fun.
And I don't know about you, but it's sometimes I just feel like I'm like rejecting hospitality and being so difficult with the allergies and the intolerances and things, and it makes it hard to just connect with people over coffee or just, sharing a meal together because you feel, it's a lot to ask people to cook for you in a certain way, and so I'm grateful that we share it and it can just be fluid as
Yes.
it is.
Yeah, and I think also our husbands being able to, I don't know, just share that,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
not everyone knows what it's like to have, and then I think especially because oftentimes we look fine on the outside. Like I can tell when you're having a bad day, and I think you can tell when I'm having a bad day,
Yeah.
but your average person can't.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you mean? What's wrong with you? And assuming that you're fine.
Right.
And you want people to assume that you're fine, but then when your husband keeps bailing on every commitment or
know,
every other
I
thing,
know.
like, oh, my wife needs me to be home with the kids, and it's like, your kids are old enough. Like, why?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's such a double-edged sword because you want to be able to look normal so that people don't classify you as the sick person or the one, that, I don't know, just always has that hanging over them. But at the same time, it does make it really difficult to convey
yeah,
without sounding like you're complaining. Just how rough it can be when
Yeah.
it is up close. So, they have a lot of camaraderie, the husbands.
yes, yes,
Right across the street, we've had, passing supplements back and forth.
Yes.
And sharing
and
drinks
drugs
in the middle
late
of
at
the
night, in the middle of the night. It's like,
Yes.
I'm having an allergic reaction to everything. What do you have that I can take? Or I'm out of this one particular pain med. I need.
I know.
I have tons of gabapentin. I'm not taking it anymore. Are you still
I'm
taking
not
it?
either.
Okay.
So, we
Yeah.
both weaned.
Yay, we weaned off our gabapentin.
Yes.
But yeah, for a while I needed it. Like I couldn't get through the day without it.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful to not be as reliant on it.
Yes, I know.
But yeah, always keeping things. I was debating bringing it with me for going out of town.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, if I bring it, I won't need it. But if I don't bring it, then I'll be there desperately needing it.
Yes.
So I think I'm gonna
Just
bring
it in case.
Yeah.
That's wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a bit more about just your health journey and I don't know, if you don't mind getting into a little more details and just kind of explaining what all you've been through.
Yeah. Well, I was a lot like you in the sense that growing up, I was really athletic and didn't have any overt health issues. Like, I would get headaches more than the average kid. Sometimes it would take me longer to recover. Some allergy issues, but nothing severe or crippling or anything. And then through the years, I would notice I would go through bouts of being more tired or lethargic. I started developing more allergies as time went on. And then had a pretty rough bout with Lyme for about 2.5 years, which sort of started my journey and on my foray into the natural health sphere. Lyme can be pretty controversial, as you know, in the traditional allopathic medical world, and so to be taken seriously and to try to get better, I had to do the natural route, and I'm actually really grateful that it providentially turned out that way, because I think going through that, it helped me really take charge of my health.
Yeah.
And not just rely on diagnoses and whatever medication they would give me, but I started researching a lot, reading a lot, and then I think that proved pretty vital as time went on, and it became apparent there was something other than Lyme going on, because that drove my ability to just navigate the medical system, as we've both done, and ultimately end up with a diagnosis of Ehlers-Danlos. Like, you have the hypermobility type, which is a lifelong condition without a cure, that can worsen with various triggers. So we were both born with this connective tissue disorder, which makes it more difficult for our body to bounce back and recover and turn over its cells in all different ways. But yeah, various things like the stress of childbirth, the stress of a viral or bacterial illness like Lyme, or just other common viral illnesses that other people catch and are fine, that can trigger a massive response and setback for us. And so with a lot of the stress of moving to Steubenville, and I think also getting COVID, it just set off this cascade of health issues that left me pretty baffled, and just discouraged, mystified for quite a while, until I actually got the diagnosis, which explained a lot. But it was a rough ride there in the dark, not really knowing what was happening, and thinking a lot of it was in my head or stress related. And stress can be a trigger,
Right.
but not the cause. So it was, just a process of unwinding all that. And you were going through it at the same time. So,
Which is funny because I feel like we had such different symptoms in the beginning,
yes,
but now
exactly.
we're a lot more alike.
Yeah,
And we still have different flare-ups, different things. Like, I think my joints, like, I dislocate a lot more
yes,
than you, but we both have nerve stuff.
yeah,
And
fatigue
and crazy fatigue and exhaustion, and then also the mast cell activation syndrome,
Exactly.
like the overly allergic to everything, like,
yes,
and like not even being able to. Sometimes you can trace it. So for me, I'm like, okay, I know trigger things that I like always avoid the gluten, the dairy, but then it's weird things that I'm like, what? And then racking my brain. I'm covered head to toe in hives.
Yeah.
What could I have eaten?
I know.
Or what could I have touched?
What could I have smelled that set this off?
Yeah.
And you even said the other day, I didn't know that you had this issue too, but just the lighting makes such a difference for you. Like, I found that actually is a trigger for mast cell, which is just, it's so crazy to me to think that lighting
mega
can do
stores,
that.
going into mega stores.
Exactly.
It drains me. Like, it's,
Yes.
and then also being a able looking person, like, I'm very able.
Yeah.
But then, so when I like walk into the store, I'm okay. But then when I'm walking around the store, like, I hit rock bottom, and it's like, I need to get out now. And then the pain gets worse in the joints, and I'm dislocating, and I'm like, I need to get in my car right now.
Yeah.
So having the handicap pass, I both love and don't love.
Yeah.
But it's one of those that it's like, it's humbling. It's so humbling to be like, yes, I realize that it's ridiculous that I am 40 years old parking in a handicapped spot, and I look like I could run a marathon.
Right.
But the reality is, I cannot run a marathon.
I know.
Old me could, and I hope in the future. And I think we both have, I think we're both naturally glass is half full people,
Yeah.
which I think is a huge blessing with this,
Yeah.
because I think we both think like health and healing is just around the corner,
Exactly.
and we just need to keep persevering.
Yes.
And then the Lord is teaching us something in this, and we just need to pray through it and offer up and love and and try. But I could only imagine, because I find it sometimes hard, especially when you're in a really bad flare up, to get disheartened.
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of people that do suffer greatly with depression and anxiety. And I feel like that's always something whenever I go to a new doctor and they're like, you know, your scores are crazy bad. Like, you really should be depressed. Okay, well, I'm not, so.
I know.
Do you get that
And then-
too?
Yeah, they'll ask all the time, which I totally understand, but also that there's, especially mine has been nerve based from the beginning. And so I don't know how much this affects you, but like the vagus nerve can control a lot of our, or at least influence a lot of our emotional response
Yes,
to
that's
things.
true.
So I find when I'm having a bad day, I literally feel and think like a different person sometimes. Like I can try to think positively and just have that long-term perspective. But oftentimes I just feel underwater.
Yes. No,
I'm
that's fair.
just like
Yeah.
more emotional. Everything seems dark. And then on a medium or good day, I feel fine. And I'm really hopeful. Like, yeah, I just have to find the right rhythm, figure out the right supplement regime, and, rest. And then things will trend upwards and it'll be okay. And so, like, I had a tough day yesterday, and today I'm good. And I came home, or Rob came home from his chat with Matt earlier, and we were talking about something that we had been talking about yesterday. Same subject matter, one day apart, and it just felt like a world of difference.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I don't
Or
know.
yesterday you were really overwhelmed by it, but today it's
exactly.
not a big deal.
Yeah, literally the same topic, the same
Yeah.
issue. And that can be really destabilizing to feel like you just don't have that internal anchor that you used to
Yes.
have to ride out storms in the same way.
Yes, I am like that actually.
Okay.
Now that you say that, I'm like, oh no, definitely. And I find it gets me the most in the middle of the night.
Yes.
So on nights
exactly.
that I can't sleep and my pain is through the roof and I can't, and I need to be upright, so I'm like in my recliner chair,
Yeah.
and that's where I feel like that, and I'm like it can be something little, like this Airbnb wasn't letting me change. Like I was trying to switch from one Airbnb to another and he wasn't letting me change it, and I would have been out that money, and I was so stressed and so upset over it. And then like, I don't know, I lost like all night. I was upset about it, and I was like, why is this guy being like this and like totally stealing my peace, and this is going to be the end of the world because I'm going to lose this bit of money, or maybe pay for two places when we just need one.
Yeah.
And that, I didn't verbalize it to Matt. It was like 3 days or 4 days that I was so stressed by it. And like I would have said I was stressed by other things too, but that was like the biggest thing. And then one day I like said it out loud to Matt, and Matt's like, so what? Like, let's just lose the money. Like, what?
Isn't it amazing?
Is it that big of a deal?
Yes.
And I was like, I guess not. And he's like, this guy obviously needs the money and he's counting on it, and we got a good price on it, so let's just say that the place we got was double the price. Like, is it that big of a deal? And I was like, no, it's not. And the amount of stress that I went through in my body, and I'm realizing more, I'm trying to be more mindful of my body and where I'm holding my pain, and I am shocked how much my pain is affected by my stress levels.
Yes. It's
Which
so
I
true.
didn't think was the case, because I think mentally I can handle stress very well, and I'm like, I'm not stressed at all. Like, I'm not overwhelmed, but my body is literally crippling and
Yes.
shutting down. Hi, I am recording. Thank you. Gotta love teenagers.
He knew right away.
He's like, wait, there's lots of lights on. Maybe I should walk out. But yeah, were you aware that the effect of stress?
I wasn't. And I kind of resisted it at first because I was like, this is not in my head. And you need to take me seriously because
too.
I know my body.
I actually have physical diagnosis.
A high pain tolerance.
Yes,
and
that's me too. I'm like, I have a high pain tolerance. This is ridiculous. Like, I've dislocated bones.
Yeah.
I've hurt, like, and also you can't, like, I'm like, put your hand on my hip as I step. My hip comes out. My knee comes out. I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not. But stress is still affecting my body.
Yes.
And so telling my brain that I'm okay. Like, I'm really, I don't know, trying to dive deep into this.
Yeah. Well, like, we're a unity of body and soul. And so I'm finding in so many different ways, I'm experiencing that in ways like I could conceive of it before, but I didn't know that we carry our stress physically to such a degree. It's really true. But it's so interesting you said that about Matt, because I've found that the best way to deal with this has been just staying in connection through the emotional ups and downs. And it was Rob, my husband, that kind of brought this to the fore for me. Through a lot of the work that he does with both Edith Stein and Thomas Aquinas, he just conceives of life as like a dialogue with God.
Yeah.
And as long as we stay in dialogue, even if it's an angry dialogue, a frustrated dialogue, whatever it is, as long as we don't break connection, then we continue that conversation, which is our life, and then end with him and remain with him after it all. And I found that I would respond like you, where when I would get overwhelmed or frustrated or concerned about something, I would just sort of shut down and just like carry it and try to deal with it. But he'll say all the time, like, just speak it to me. Just say it to me. Just let me know. And as long as we stay in that connection, we can deal with whatever it is together. And that has made such a tremendous difference. And I'm surprised by how much of a difference it's made, actually just speaking something out. But I mean, it makes sense knowing how central the word is, you know, and just sharing the word of what's actually happening. And he told me this little anecdote about, it's either Catherine of Siena or Teresa of Avila. I'm not sure. I have like brain fog.
That's okay.
with the
We love them both.
Meter.
They won't be offended if we accidentally give the wrong one credit.
Both doctors, I think. But yeah, Jesus appeared to her and she just said, I don't want to talk to you right now. And he said, bring that to me. And it was so powerful when I heard it, because we think we have to like figure out how to manage it on our own or somehow, make it controllable. But just bring it. Like, I feel like crap right now. Or this thing that we were chatting about yesterday, which was so overwhelming yesterday and today, I just thought was so ridiculous. But we're having lovely friends bring meals for us in the week of his birth, and a dear friend made this lovely loaf of sourdough bread, and it was so thoughtful and warm and everything. And I used to bake bread a lot, and I can't do it anymore just because I'm overwhelmed with like the basics, and bread baking is just not up there right now. And so I just saw this beautiful loaf of bread, and I was just heartbroken that like it's something that I loved to do. I can't do it right now. And I feel like I can't care for my family in the ways that I used to care for them. And it just started this whole like train of thought about just like how different life is for the kids, how different life is for Rob, what I wish I could give them, what I'm heartbroken I can't give them. And it turned out that, and so I just kept that to myself, but it just festered. And today, in speaking it out and just saying that, I was like, oh gosh, like, it's not,
they don't mind
so
that you haven't
manageable and it's
baked them bread.
Exactly.
No.
But in the throes of the illness, the emotional like override just seems to be a lot stronger than it is on our good days, which is a challenge in itself. So
we had a similar experience. We had someone, I think we just had someone over for dinner, but I had multiple bad days, and like I just hadn't made a decent dinner in a while. Like it was like Matt was making eggs, and sausage for the kids, or I'd make something, but it's like a one pot, and I did a salad, and I did multiple dishes, but everyone was just like, wow, do you remember when we used to eat like this all the time? And I felt the same. I was like, I'm the worst mother in the world. Like I don't make not even multiple course meals. I don't make multiple things for dinner because I'm tired and exhausted, and it's like I'm just gonna do the bare minimum.
The
to
Instant Pot is your best friend.
Exactly. Yes. I do a lot of Instant Pot, and it's like I have the energy to chop it and throw it in, and that's it. And I remember thinking the same thing. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm such a bad mom. And then I started doing the sourdough again as well, and trying to do that for them. And I can't eat it, so I'm literally just doing it for them, which is fine. And I love them, and I want to do it for them. And I think that was it too. I made a loaf of sourdough bread too, so it's funny that it's spelled sourdough.
Yeah.
But it was the same. It was like they meant it as a compliment, but I took it as an insult and took it as, look at all the ways that I'm failing them.
Yeah.
And if I was in my normal, like old Cameron could have easily done it. Like I would have made this great meal with all these different things and then cleaned the kitchen and been fine afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Where now it's like, okay, I just used all my spoons on cooking dinner, so I need you guys to clean up. And we rely on them a lot more, which is hard. I had a guy come up to me. Actually, I had two guys. They both were guys, which is interesting. But at Seek, two different guys came up to me. One's mom had MS, and the other, I don't know what it was, but she was always sick growing up.
Okay.
And I think it was the same idea as he said, my mom used to be very active and do everything, and then she suffered greatly and doesn't do much. And he said that she taught him everything, and he is so grateful. Wow. And he's like, I know I've heard you say things before. I just want you to know, from the kid's point of view, I wouldn't change anything that my mom went through or suffered. Like, it's made me the man I am.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Wow. It was really beautiful. And one of them, I can't remember which one. One is non-engaged, but almost engaged. So he's like, his girlfriend suffers with similar, I don't know if it's POTS or what it is, but some health stuff. And he's like, how can I better love? I'm like, just the fact that you're coming to talk to me and you're sharing about your mom, like, you're going to just be a great loving support for your future wife.
Yes.
And just having that open conversation, that open dialect, where I feel like Matt wasn't expecting this at all.
Right.
You know, like, and I know he's mentioned before, there was a priest at Franciscan that said, he was like, he was going to confession, just saying ways that he was failing, you know, as a husband. And the priest was just, well, nothing's gone wrong. You said in sickness. This is in sickness. So buckle up and love her better. And he was like, wow, okay. Like, thank you, Father. I appreciate that.
Amazing words.
Yeah, and I think it was hard for him to hear. And then I'm like, I'm sorry there's been so much more sickness and health.
Yeah.
Like, I wish the and health was more.
Yeah.
And I think, and now looking back, I see how sick I was, like, our entire marriage. Yeah. But I always viewed myself as a healthy person. I'm like, I'm not a sick person. I'm a healthy person.
Yeah.
But if I count how many times I've been hospitalized through our marriage, and
you've had a rough ride.
Like,
you really have.
It's like, oh yeah, wait, maybe I wasn't the healthiest. But in my mind, I still was healthy. And I remember even having visits in the hospital. I'm like, it's so weird I'm in the hospital again. But I'm a really healthy person.
I feel like you mark time with your hospitalizations. You're like, oh yeah, that time when I had sepsis or whatever it was.
I'm like, that was pre the month-long hospital stay.
Oh my gosh. Oh. I know. Do you ever feel like, how do you deal with, I mean, maybe it's not an issue for you, but I feel like I'm tempted toward just feeling like there's an imbalance in the marriage, and I feel so badly for the ways my husband suffer and the kids suffer, that in itself becomes an obstacle to just being with them in the ways that I can, or giving them like just my presence, you know, because I'm like dealing with the guilt at the same time, and it makes things strange. So I don't know, do you struggle with the same?
So early on in our marriage, Matt, or even maybe after, maybe up to like 10 years, he said, I always feel like we're dealing with my stuff. We're never dealing with your stuff. Like, it's always about me. And in some ways, like, Matt had a pornography addiction that I didn't know about, right? So that was the beginning of our marriage. His pornography addiction hitting where he couldn't deal with it, and he told me about it. I didn't even know that he struggled with pornography at all. And so I feel like in the very beginning of our marriage, that was our big cross.
Yeah.
And then we fought through that together, and I loved him in and through that.
Wow.
and I'm grateful. I think I feel less guilty because we had that in the early days.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we did deal with my stuff as well. I feel like I was like a clock. I was like the week of ovulation and the week of my period. I was so sick, and yeah, I would be exploding both ends, both weeks, and just my body would just shut down, and that was hard. But the other 2 weeks I was good. So I always felt like I was trying to make up those healthy weeks for the sick weeks. And then once we had kids, I think that was my main focus, was on the kids and making sure they were good. Everything was great with them. And yeah, I feel very guilty now, but I also look back and I'm like, okay, when my kids were in bad places, I was able to love them and help them through it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the sleepless nights and the, you know, breastfeeding when you have thrush or mastitis or whatever sickness, and like loving them in and through that. So I do feel bad, but I also know that I gave my all when I could give my all. And even now, when I can give my all, I give my all. I feel really bad for times that my kids choose not to tell me something. So I had a child that got sick and was up through the night vomiting and didn't tell me. And I felt so bad, and I was like, I wish you had told me. And she knew I was up the night before with a sibling, up sick, vomiting, and she's like, she needed you, I was okay. I knew that, I knew there was nothing you could do for me, and I just prayed and offered it up. And
so sweet.
I know, it was so sweet. And like, so like it broke my heart. A part of me, it broke my heart. I'm like, I wish she had woken me up and I was there for her. But then another part of me is like, okay, I have this amazing, beautiful girl that has learned what it means to suffer and how to pray for others. She's praying for pregnant people that don't, you know the worth and their dignity. And I love that. I love that she's praying for this woman in particular that we're thinking about, you know, and praying for that baby and protection. And I'm like, she's getting suffering more than I got it.
Yes.
Like a year ago, let alone at her age.
Yeah.
And so it is hard, and I feel bad, but I know the Lord is using it to, to make her a saint and make her beautiful.
Yeah, that's a beautiful perspective. And like, just the two that you had come up to you at Seek just confirmed that. It seems like this won't break them.
Yeah, I want to talk to Father Dave about it too. Father Dave's mom was really sick.
Okay.
I think she has MS as well.
Okay.
Or had. I don't know if she's still living or not, but he talks about it being a blessing as well, and not like this massive, I'm sure it was a massive cross as well, but that gives me hope, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you know I love you and I'd do anything. But in moments like, do you remember when we used to go for walks, Mom? Remember when we used to do that? I'm like, remember when we used to go down to Beatty Park? I'm like, I do. Like, the park's literally in our backyard. I'm like,
know.
I'm sorry, those stairs, I just can't do it right now. But I look forward to being able to do it again.
Yeah. That's so good. They're learning so much, like not only practically, like I think about our girls, and they're so innovative and industrious, and they have, you know, all these projects they're working on, and a lot of that comes just like this self-starter initiative that comes from needing to just be creative in ways they wouldn't otherwise, but also how to process emotion like that, like, oh, this is tough, like you used to be able to do this and now you can't, and in bringing that to us, it just provides a forum for them to work through all these different emotions that maybe they wouldn't otherwise have. Yeah, just the other day they were saying, like, do you remember on our old trampoline, you used to be out there like flipping all the time and like jumping with us, and now it's so different. But they seem to be coping really well, especially with the gift of having friends going through the same thing. You know, that is a big boon for them.
Yeah, I think it's good that, and I like, that's so like God's goodness. The fact that we came at the same time. Like God's so good. Like, even I wouldn't have ended up at Cleveland Clinic if it wasn't for you.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
Last Easter.
yeah, and that was just via the Newtons. It was friends of ours saying, we have a friend. I
Yeah.
don't even know if we had met then.
No, we met at their Easter party.
Okay, yes.
And Claire put us together and was like, you guys need to talk.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
friends,
And that's when I knew I
good
loved your
friends.
husband, was when I was at the hospital, and well, I went in just to get, like, I wasn't that sick, and I was like, I don't need to go in. And it was the Newtons and the Welkers that were like, no, Cameron, you should go. And I'm like, I'm feeling fine. I think I should wait till I'm not feeling good. And like, we've seen you not feeling good. You can't drive 2 hours when you're not feeling well. You just need to go in now. And so Matt and I expected to go in, and they'll get us appointment. That's what happened with you. You got like an appointment sooner.
Yeah.
And then they're like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. What is wrong with me? It's like, your blood pressure is like plummeting. What is going on? I'm like, I don't know. It did this when I like lived in the hospital a couple years back. And so they like admitted me, and we just didn't see it coming. I didn't have any food. I didn't have and Rob brought me a bag of Whole Food stuff. And it was all of your favorite things and my favorite things.
Yes.
And I was just like, I love this man.
I know the hospital food, we can't eat totally know the feeling.
And it's like, I can't be, like, you don't understand. I'm going to get so much sicker unless you guys let me go. And like, we're not going to let you go until your levels improve. And I'm like, right, but if you don't feed me good food,
my levels
will plummet.
a lot more.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. But no, it's good. It's been quite the journey. Like, in some ways, I feel like it's been way longer than 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty much been 2 years.
I know. Yeah. And I think I find myself still walking this tightrope that you mentioned earlier of, the glass half full, like, I will improve.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't forever. I know another friend of mine who has EDS. She's such an inspiration to me because she had a really rough few years, and she's doing so much better now. And so I'm just trying to, strike the balance between staying in the moment and surrendering, and also being hopeful and expecting that things will improve. God does want me to be well.
Yes.
And then at the end of the day, just offering it all,
Yeah. And not knowing. And I think that's where, like, changing my end goal for so long, it was just, Lord, make me healthy.
Yes.
Like, make me healthy again. Like, I just want to be me. Mm-hmm. And I feel like my whole family is like, we just want mom back. We want my wife back.
Right.
I want, like, imagine me. Like, old Cameron was awesome. I didn't realize it.
I know.
New Cameron sucks. She's always sitting down, having to put her legs up, get her compression socks on, her insoles. Like, I had to pick shoes, what not shoes to bring, because my insoles don't fit in them.
Oh, no.
But, it's, I don't know. But realizing, like, the end goal is not health. The end goal is not being healthy. The end goal is heaven. It's holiness. And it's like, okay, Lord, if this is the path that you've chosen me to be on to get holy, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop flying down to Dr. Care. Yeah. like, I need joints to stay in place, and I will continue seeking medical help because I need it. Mm-hmm. And I will keep trying to mentally tell my body it's not. I watched this episode. Do you remember Blossom?
No.
Oh my goodness, did you ever watch the TV show Blossom? Okay, what else was she on? What's that TV show? It's a bunch of nerds. They're all scientists.
Okay. I was super sheltered growing up,
okay.
So I was not
The
allowed
Big
to watch
Bang
a lot of
Theory.
TV.
The Big Bang Theory. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, there's a girlfriend on The Big Bang Theory, and back in the day, she was on this TV show called Blossom. And so her name was Blossom. That's not really her name. I don't know her name in real life. But she lives in California, movie star type lifestyle, right?
Okay.
She got crazy sick. I think it was back stuff, like kept throwing her back out, all this stuff. She like saw all these doctors, and she found this guy. I just listened to his book. What's it called? Drawing a blank. But he talks about, I watched this interview they did, and he wrote a book on basically how to get your life back. And he worked with her for a long time. And basically, he's had people there are plenty of people that have actually, and this is where I have a hard time with it, where like the whole DMR, what do you call that
like
thing?
EMDR with the eyes.
No, not that one. The other one. It's DMT something. It's like it's like retrain the brain.
Okay.
That
okay.
stuff. So I get that, and I'm like, okay, but then I'm like, but my stuff is actually physical. It's not just mental.
Right.
So I get when it's like, okay, when it's a mental thing, do these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, but that's not me. I'm actually in the physical. These are things wrong with my body. Like, you can't make your blood pressure do crazy things, or your heart do crazy things. I'm like, no, these are legit sicknesses. And he takes it from a point of view, both columns can grow and gain by letting your body know that you don't need to be in fight mode, and like telling your brain that you're okay. So like doing mental exercises, like where you're aware of your body, you're aware of where you're having the pain, and following it like in a lighthearted way. And I bring that in with prayer too, and like, Lord, I give to you my right hip that I just feel so much pressure in right now and just really hurts. Like, I give you that. And like, okay, what else is going on? Okay, relaxing my hip, relaxing my feet, relaxing, like trying to relax your whole body going through.
Yes.
But he doesn't say the prayer bit, but I've incorporated the prayer bit into it, and just being mindful of it and like letting my body know there's nothing to be afraid of. You don't need to be stressed. Like, things are okay. Mm-hmm. And he did this interview with Blossom, and her back, like, she had thrown her back out. She was in excruciating pain, couldn't even sit down. Was having a conversation with him, and she sat down at one point, and she's like, and now I'm sitting where normally I can't sit. And so like she was doing it, and then it wasn't until she like distracted herself enough having the conversation with him that was like, hey, look, you're able to do the thing you couldn't do before because you weren't thinking about it.
Yeah.
Type thing. And it's, I don't know, I find it interesting. And so trying to bring in all these different things,
yes,
but also taking all my supplements that,
right.
and I know people are like, supplements, like you just pay a lot of money for your urine.
They make a difference.
Actually, I don't function without it.
Yeah.
And the electrolytes and the other things, it's like there's some non-negotiables.
Yeah.
What's the one? Quercetin? What's the one that helps with the...
Oh, yeah, quercetin.
Yes, that's been huge. So I haven't needed to take Benadryl every single night since I started that.
Yeah.
So I only take Benadryl on nights where I'm starting to have hives or like breaking out. And that's been huge.
Yeah.
And that's like an easy thing. And
it is.
Are there any bad side effects?
Yeah, no, not that I know of.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just take the dose as it's recommended to take.
Yeah. And like my low dose naltrexone, did I tell you they got me back on that?
No.
So I think that may be part of why I've been able to get off the gabapentin, is they've been upping my low dose naltrexone, which dry mouth and vivid dreams are the side effects. Where I don't even want to list all the side effects of gabapentin.
I know.
And the brain fog. I already mess everything up in my head anyhow, and then you add that level of brain fog. So finding those things, so it's, I feel like it's a constant, or the red light therapy, the ultraviolet light. It's like finding things where it's like, okay, I have my non-negotiables that I have to do, and when I do these, I'm functioning. Mm-hmm. But then even if I'm doing everything right, I still have days where I'm not.
Yeah. But it tips the scales, I think, I just found that I reached a point where I was so tired of being hamster wheeled through the medical system.
Yes.
I was bounced around to so many different specialties at Cleveland Clinic, and the doctors are great. They're so professional. And I never felt like I got, very rudely dismissed or anything. Like, I've heard a lot of stories of people who have a tougher time. But
yeah, I would say that too. I feel like my doctors normally were respectful of me and did take me seriously.
Yeah.
Not necessarily knowing the whole picture, knowing what's not working. And even back in Atlanta, like, I lived on those Meyer cocktails for a long time.
Yes.
And I was like, I needed those. Those IV fluids, my body just didn't function without it. But when I had them, it would buy me time. But there's lots of different diagnoses, but it's like, we don't know exactly what's wrong, but we see that something is wrong, and this is a solution.
Right. It's a medication Band-Aid for the specific symptom. But I realized we weren't getting to the bottom of anything, and they just kept adding medications. And so I actually, in starting to research, I found so much out there just in the natural world, but a lot of like double-blind studies, you know, funded by the government, so legitimate stuff on different supplements and different protocols that have helped people recover from both autoimmune conditions or help their Ehlers-Danlos become more manageable. So that's where I heard about the quercetin. And another one that's been huge for me is high-dose magnesium glycinate. There are lots of magnesium forms out there, but this one was, it crosses the blood-brain barrier. And
I used to be on that. I was like 1,000 milligrams a day.
Yeah, you need a lot for it to make a difference, but it really helps with sleep. And there are really no side effects. Your body needs magnesium for like thousands of different processes. And
so an old doctor had me on that, but my new one has me on a different form of magnesium.
Okay.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. You might want to try, because you can take like multiple different forms at a time, and so it's just experimenting, finding out like what works for your body, what helps you. But I have noticed far fewer side effects doing supplement protocols than just being on a cocktail of all these different pharmaceuticals. So. Yeah,
this Colace Standard Processing has a something for constipation, which has been the best thing for me, like to be regular. Like I cannot go a day without it. Like it is my saving grace. It's way better than other things. And I used to have to like live on enemas. Like I would just get to a point and I'm like, okay, I need another enema. And I would try so many different like it was ridiculous. And it's like Standard Processing. It's like a food grade and it's been amazing. And then there's another one that starts with N, I forget what it's called. But it's, the main thing in it is California poppy. And Dr. Kerr calls it like the happy pill.
Wow.
And so he has people that like suffer from postpartum depression, and he puts them on it, and they're great.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, I need I have the California poppy in liquid form, and it tastes so disgusting, but it's totally worth it. And when I've had multiple bad days in a row, I'm like, I just need this. And I take it, and it tastes so bad, but it's like that dark cloud starts to lift, and it's like, okay, I can come out of this. And and it's finding those things and sticking with them, and then sometimes it's changing them.
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing too. I feel like it's not a set, this is what'll always work. It's like, this is what's working right now.
Exactly. It's an evolving picture.
Yes.
One thing I've been surprised about too is how much like structural adjustment can make a difference.
Yes.
In addition to the supplements and like the brain retraining. We found a great doctor that now we both see down in Florida, who's a chiropractor by trade but does a lot of different things. And
I think just healing guru is the what I feel more comfortable calling him. I think that's the correct term. All healing guru.
Yes, I know. He's amazing. His name is Dr. Kyer. He's at Three Kings Chiropractic in Florida, and he just does a whole array of things in his practice. But I found that because our bodies, there's the nerves and the different pathways are so intricate. Different things like just subtle adjustments to posture. And to like structural issues that I didn't even know I had until I saw him. It made such a profound difference in my fatigue, my mobility, my cognition.
I don't think I've had a migraine since my first adjustment with him.
Yeah,
and I used to get them all the time.
I know, same. And it just, and things you wouldn't think would be affected by chiropractic, like even my sensitivity to the lights or my mast cell stuff. We're so
Mine's my walking. Like I limp into his office, and an hour later I'm like, I can go for a run.
Yeah.
Like my joint, like look, I'm like everything's moving, and I'm just so amazed by it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know.
And he feels like he's popping stuff out. Like he does stuff where I'm like, oh, that hurts really bad. Like you don't understand. You're gonna dislocate it and break it. And it's like he just pushes it to a point, and then it's like he tells me to give him a bit. I'm doing these deep breaths in through my nose, out through my mouth, and then all of a sudden the pain like melts.
Yes. I know.
I don't
He's
understand it.
so gifted. He has, yeah, I think some people have a vocation of healing.
Yes.
He definitely does. And yeah, so I think just trying a whole variety of things has been the most helpful approach for me, not just relying on the medical system or
Yeah.
different drugs, but just any angle that I can.
Yeah.
Get
And
it.
trying all of it. And it
Yeah.
is exhausting. And then I also think you find ones that you're like, okay, so I've had other like chiropractor type
Yeah.
people,
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, this does make me feel better right now, but it doesn't hold for 24 hours. So it's like, okay, you know what? That wasn't worth me going in, spending that money and being there for an hour or two.
Right.
Like, that's not worth it.
Yeah, yeah.
But flying to Florida, is.
Yeah.
Because, like, so my last adjustment with him, was it a month ago? I'm trying to remember what it was. But I've dislocated, but I haven't constantly been dislocating. Where before I went to him, it was every single step, each hip was coming out and my knees. And since I saw him, I can probably count how many times something's dislocated, but it's not a constant. Like, I'm able to do the things that he told me to do, stand in the weird positions or tape, the ways that he told me to tape. And it's like, okay, I'm mainly staying in line. Like, I am having issues, but they're minor. And it's like maybe twice a day at max, where before it was like 5 times every step, which is huge. Like, that is, did you hear that?
I know.
As I'm like, I am
feel
great.
I don't dislocate as much as you do, but I do. My joints are like popcorn. I feel like getting out of bed in the middle of the night, I wake Rob up. I'm like, crack, 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 crack.
Yes, me too.
It's
Like, are you making
it's
popcorn?
I
No,
know.
you just stood up. You're fine.
I know.
But then I also do like the grandma. Like, every time I get out of bed, it's like like I do the grandma back. Do you do that too?
Yes.
Like, I can't stand up. Like, oh, Sonny, give me a moment. Let old Grandma Frad just get her bearings here as I waddle to the bathroom.
It is humbling.
It
very
is.
humbling.
It's so humbling.
In my mind, I'm still an athlete.
Yes, me too. I identify as an athlete. Like, I am so not an athlete. Like, I think we get hurt if we try to throw the ball to our kid. Like, oh, there goes Mom's arm.
The kids were talking about Sound of Music the other day as they were playing ball. Do you know the scene where they try to get the Baroness to play ball?
Yes.
And they throw the ball at her and she's like, oh. That's me now. I used to be Maria.
Me too, yes. Oh, totally. Praise you, Jesus.
I know.
We're even talking about, I'm hopeful being in the sun, being in Guatemala will help.
Which makes such a difference.
Yeah.
Just that alone.
Yeah. And then also just the food. I mean, we're pretty strict with food here too, but it's just, everything's just going to be so fresh, and then the warmth and the sun. I know there's some people that do better in the cold with EDS or POTS, which I
it's
find
so variable. I've heard that too. And people with autoimmune conditions in general, like, people with MS and other things, it seems from what I've heard and read that like the heat is a trigger.
Yeah.
But for me, the sun is so huge. And Rob taught in Austria for 8 years at Franciscan's campus there, and he said, there, if you have a serious illness, they'll literally prescribe you time by the seaside, or
That's amazing.
or massage therapy, or these.
Are you
other
hoping to do
things,
Austria soon?
Can
Can we put his name back in for Austria, please?
But like all through history, that was how people dealt with things. Like, you go to the seaside to recover, and you spend 3 months there, and they have homes for convalescing people on the shoreline, because salt water is huge. But and ground on the seaside, like grounding,
Yeah. I'm bringing my grounding sandals.
Perfect.
Looking at the volcano. We're not going to the
You're
seaside.
gonna
We're going
come
to a
back.
lake.
glowing. The sun and the food and the ground.
Well, it's funny. I'm packing all my like special compression pants and all the things and my tape and everything that I think that I may need. But I'm also talking about like Peter really wants to see a volcano, and you can hike this one non-active volcano and see one that is active, like the red kind of erupting at the top, like little giving out smokes. I'm like, we could do that. It's like, Mom, you're gonna hike a volcano? I'm like, maybe if I feel good. I may feel well enough to hike a volcano. Like, I'm like, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't like start off planning that, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
Like there's kayaks and there's paddleboard, and I am hopeful that I'll be able to do it there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I did paddleboarding one of the times Matt and I went to Florida.
Yeah.
And I just felt fine, which is so crazy.
I remember when you went last year and you said you just felt totally normal down there.
Yeah.
Like your old self. Yeah. I think the vitamin D, the seashore, all that it'll be so good for you because they really, it makes such a difference.
Yeah, I feel like someone today was asking, like, why are you going to Guatemala? I'm like, kind of mainly for my health issues, but the sun, like that's a big pull, and we're gonna learn Spanish. Like there's other reasons, and I was telling Matt, like I feel like I don't even know why. Like God knows.
Yeah.
God knows why we're going, and He'll reveal that while we're there.
Yeah.
But I'm very much looking forward to this time that, for whatever reason, even if the reason was to go for my health stuff, just to have this little family oasis getaway time. I think it'll be beautiful.
Yeah. He really does provide in and through it. And it's so hard to see at the time. But like you said, I mean, He'll make the kids saints in His own way, in His own time through this. And maybe part of their formation is this trip all together, learning Spanish, everything involved, and He'll use that for His glory, their development. Anything else.
He's so perfect.
I know it's me. Just could stare at him all day.
Oh, his nose and cheeks have gotten really chubby.
I know. He's got neck rolls. Just barely a week old.
Chubby neck.
I know.
Do you know I've gotten a lot more chubby in my neck? Speaking of neck rolls, it's not chubby. It's my skin. I am so much more like elastic. Do you see this?
Yes, I'm the same way. Like my skin is so elastic and stretchy, and I mean it.
I know that's like a EDS
but
thing, but I feel like mine is definitely. I was like doing something. I was like, oh gosh, I have like. I got a lot of extra skin here. Like if someone told me that I like lost like 500 pounds and that's why my face is like this, I'm like, that makes sense. But I never was 500 pounds heavier.
I know, it's so funny. You could do all these party tricks, like with the double jointed finger and thumb things, like.
I used to, back in the day in high school.
everywhere.
I didn't know about the skin thing, but all the double jointed stuff. My sister and I used to like stand on we played softball, and sometimes when we'd be done, we'd be watching the guys play baseball, and we'd like grab like the fence, right? And do these weird like tricks for our body. And I was like, oh, what's wrong with y'all? And we're like, we're just so cool.
Little did you know.
Little did we know we
came with a downside.
I know, a fun disease. And I'm like, oh, I thought it was just a party trick.
I know.
Or the tongue thing. Can you spell wow with your tongue? Or the cow?
The kids have told me you can.
Yeah. So I could do wow.
Oh, wow.
And I could do cow.
Impressive. No way.
And then my joke with the kids is the variation. Ready? Mom.
Upside down.
Upside down wow.
That's great.
Like it's a weird thing my tongue does. And then I get these crazy hiccups sometimes. And Matt was saying, because they diagnosed the EDS with all the weird, like, by chance do you have weird like dislocating things? And I'm like, I'm double jointed, is that what you mean? Yeah. And it was like, like it made so many of my other medical things make sense. Like you're more likely to have POTS disease or IBS and all these other things. I get these crazy hiccups. So I naturally kind of have a deeper voice. Like I'm not a smoker, but I kind of have more raspy. I think it's because of all my GERD and GI stuff, right? And so I have a raspier voice. But when I get hiccups, they are so high pitch and they're like, it's crazy loud and I can't hold it in. If I hold it in, I'll vomit. and they're weird.
Oh my God.
And sometimes I get a one-off, and then other times I get them over and over. Like I've had to run out of church before. Yeah, and I've had them my whole life. No one else in my family does it. And sometimes like, maybe it's like one of your health things. I was like, hey, is there like a disease? Like if you have these weird, really high-pitched hiccups, even though you don't have a high-pitched voice? Like it's higher than I can sing. Like it's just this.
So funny. Your diaphragm's just extra stretchy or something.
Yeah, I'm like,
We should catalog all of our symptoms, our weird symptoms, and just like enter them as possible flags for EDS.
Yeah, it could be. Or the best was like the fat pockets on my foot that the guys they
yes.
asked me about. I'm like, I definitely don't have fat, and like, look, fat pockets. I'm like, oh, I have fat pockets around my head.
I'll never forget when you came back from that appointment. So these are like little pouches of fat that are on your heels. They're like the size of a pea. And you can see them when you're standing up, and they're not always there, but they're sometimes there. And
So when you're looking at your feet, you never see them. You have to be standing, putting pressure, but then you do.
yeah. And so you came home from the appointment, and you came running, and you were like, take off your shoes.
Let me look at your feet. I'm like, you have fat pockets.
It's just so
That's what
strange.
good friends are for, to help diagnose each other with weird diseases. Especially when you read about diseases and you're like, oh gosh, this is not looking good. I actually rather this disease. This still isn't looking great, but it's much better than this disease, so let's take that one.
Yes. I know. Dr. Google. Said my friend.
Yeah, the best is my current doctor. I'll send her things. I'm like, hey, someone says they think I have AS, or someone thinks this. And she's like, yeah, I think you probably do, but it's not going to change our course of treatment. Like, let's not worry about that. Like, do you want me to keep giving you diagnosis, or do you want me to just get, because they're so focused on getting rid of the Lyme disease and the chronic mold. They're like, once we fix that, then hopefully everything else will fall in place. And it gives me hope, because I'm like, okay, I've always had EDS and I didn't always have pain. So there's hope that yeah, and learning and seeing the difference between days that, like, if I am not right with my electrolytes and where my compression stuff, like, I can't function. And like, I don't know what I was doing. I did something. I had a couple episodes like a week or two ago, and I had like the Harry Potter. Did you see my Harry Potter line on my forehead? No. I was feeling dizzy, and I didn't listen to my body, and I kept going, and I like got a corner in the bathroom, and I had a lovely Harry Potter scar on my forehead. I was like, oh. And then when we were flying, I dropped something, and flying, I've got to be careful. Like, I need to just not, and I dropped something. So I went to pick it up, and I was like, oh, and like Matt grabbed me. I just about passed out. I was like, yep. Okay. He's like, why'd you bend over? I'm like, I just wanted to pick something up real quick. He's like, ask me to. I'm like, I know. And so like being mindful of that, you know, and being aware. And I didn't, like, I took my salt pills, but I didn't bring extra electrolytes as well to be like topping up throughout the day. Yeah. So learning the things where it's like, okay, we need to be mindful. We need to,
Yeah, I know. And it's hard, like, I find myself trying to figure out how much exactly to say to people, or how much to explain.
Yeah.
I think that with some more cut and dried diseases, it's easier for people to just immediately understand, like, oh, you're going through this, like, you need meals, you need, like, this is, like, these symptoms would obviously follow from a disease like that. But because the symptoms are so myriad, and there's such a fluctuation in the level of chronic pain without a clear resolution in sight, like, I don't know, for certain diseases, there's just a very clear treatment path. Yeah. And there are markers that you should be hitting along the way toward recovery that are measurable. And it's just, it's different when you, like, something as small as picking something up, or...
and then other times you can pick the thing up.
You can
so
do it
that's
one
the crazy
day
thing.
and not the next day. And it just becomes very confusing to people generally. And so I think that's another issue with chronic pain generally, that... with conditions that are a little more ambiguous or not as well researched or don't have as clear of a treatment path. That, yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, just what are your thoughts on that? Because I find myself wondering, like, how much to really explain to my extended family or friends or whatever about what's happening, without oversharing and making the conversation health related all the time.
Yes.
You know?
I remember going to Texas and visiting my family, and my sisters being like, gosh, Cameron, you walk like Dad. And I'm like, yeah, I'm having a flare up. I'm not, like, are you always like this? What's going on? And I'm like, yeah, I haven't been talking about it, but yeah. And it's like, well, I knew that you were hospitalized. I knew that was going on. So what's going on now? And it's like, I'm still in pain. Everything still hurts. Sometimes I can walk okay. Other times I can't. And it's rough, and I have a special belt to like hold things together, and it's hard because I feel like people in your daily life see it.
Yeah.
I don't always want to talk about it. In the aspect that, like, I want to talk about other things and joys in life, and especially when I feel like a broken record.
Yes.
Or if I have a new thing that's happened, it's like, I don't need to tell everyone this. Like, yeah. Like, I feel like there's certain times, like, I felt like I had to tell Father Huffman, like, I had to tell the priest why, like, we have a communion rail and I can't kneel.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, just so you know, I'm not trying to be a rebel. I just...
the one standing person.
I know, the one... I do, like, a weird, awkward lean, you know? I'm trying, but it's the getting down. I just... I can't do it anymore, and it's not something that I go around telling people, but it's like, okay, I need to let the priest know that I'm not, and the deacons figured it out, and the deacon's very nice. He'll always come to me first before doing the others, because I think he's aware that I'm like doing this, and it's awkward, and it also hurts my arms. Like, I'm like, shoulders are okay, stay in, as I'm holding myself there, and yeah, it's hard. It's not a concrete thing, and I also feel really bad, even with good friends. So I remember we were like, I was at Co-op one week. I don't think you were there. I don't think your kids were there. But I remember just feeling so bad. And I was like, I can't leave. Like, I need to hold it together. And I forget who it was. Someone looked at me. It was probably like Sarah or Star, someone that like knows me well. That was like, you don't look good. I was like, I feel horrible, and I think maybe I need to go home. And they're like, you definitely need to go home. You don't, because it's not a drop off. Our thing's not a drop off. It's we go and we stay as a family, which I love that about it. But I was like, yeah, I think I should go home. And it was like, once I verbalized it, and I was very thankful for whatever person looked at me. It was like, you don't look good. I was like, I need to go home. And it was one of those, I couldn't get out of bed after. Like, I came home, I got in bed, and that was it. And so someone else brought my kids home, and I feel so bad, but they were like, anytime, just tell us. Like, we're happy to do this for you. Yeah. And I don't always need that. And we had a friend that used to drive my girls to gymnastics a lot, and I'd call her on days. Like, sometimes I'm like, I can't walk straight. I really should not get in a car and drive. And I really don't like having to ask someone else to drive. But in those moments, being like, I'm going to be that person to call and be like, hey, it's not safe for me. And I tell myself, I'm like, I probably am the equivalent of a drunk person right now. I'm not drunk, but I'm just as bad. And so I should not be getting in that car and putting other people at risk, let alone my kids that I love, to prove that I'm, tough enough to do it. So yeah, it's hard. I don't know I don't know. How do you handle it?
I don't know. Well, I was just gonna say, and I was thinking about it while you were talking. Like, I think so much of this is just brought to the fore for me. Like, how important it is just to, like we said earlier, stay in connection, but then just like see one another and be seen, know one another and be known. Like, and that's such a real-time thing. Like, there's no prescription for how much you share, how little you share, or whatever, but like, just someone seeing you in Co-op and being like, hey, like, you need this, how can I help? And just that responsivity that's there. Like, I think that's what the Lord wants for us in this. So not to like hide and go into a shell and just cut yourself off from people, but just allow people to respond to you or to reach out if you need it. You know? Like, I mean, it's just been a grace upon grace that I can just tell you, like, I can't go up today. Can you bring the kids, or vice versa? Yeah. It makes all the difference to have people like that who you can reach out to or who see you, you know?
Yeah. And I love that we've had multiple times where one of us is doing well enough to go.
Yeah.
And then by the time the other person gets there, we have to tap out.
Yeah.
And I know I don't feel guilty at all. It's like, I need to go now, you know, and you too, like, I need to go. Yes. And it's like, yes, go. Like, we've got this. Like, I love, I love that we get it. And it's like, you need that from me and I need that from you. And that is a gift that we're able to do that for each other. Yeah. Yeah.
I know you've had so many people write to you about chronic pain and like reach out because in seeing you and seeing what you go through and hearing about it, it just opens this well of, like, it just de-silos of this isolated suffering, and it's like a bridge, you know. So in that, in people reaching out to you, like, what would you say is, I don't know, what's on people's hearts about this? Like, what are some of the
I think a lot of people feel very alone and very isolated and like they're the only one. Yeah. And I'm also realizing it's not just chronic pain, chronic stuff. Chronic stuff's its own thing too, right? Yeah, so it's that, but then it's also mental illness too. I think there's a lot of people that suffer and feel very alone, that they're the only ones like this. Mm-hmm. But I think having, like, just knowing that someone else is there. Yeah. Like, and that you're not alone in it. And it's okay that, like, you're exhausted and you don't have the energy or the strength. If I was God, I would do so many things differently. But one of the things, I would give out grace bucketfuls at a time. And I don't think that's his way. It's one drop. Mm-hmm. Like, he gives us grace, just one drop at a time. Mm-hmm. And the whole communication that you were saying earlier too, like, I don't know how many times I've yelled at God, more than I can count. Yeah. You know, he's big enough and strong enough to handle my little fit. Yeah. You know, I think of it as a toddler throwing a little fit and being so angry and like, I hate you, Dad, you're the worst ever, and why are you making me suffer? And he's okay with that. He's like, I love you. Like, I'm telling you, you can't run across the street because I love you. Right. Because that would actually kill you. Yeah. I know you think I'm killing you by saying that you can't run across the street, but I'm being a good, loving father. Yes. And just having that conversation with him and, like, having it out with him and saying, like, I'm really frustrated right now, Lord. I did this at Seek. So the first, like, 24 hours there, I was, like, in bed, not functioning, and, like, hugging a lovely Marriott trash can and just not functioning at all. And then the next day I had a good day, and then the day of my talk I had a really bad day, and just okay, can I, and not knowing if I could physically walk to where my talk was going to be, and like putting on the compression pants and the special, you know, pants that like hug all the joints, and like being like, okay, I can try to get there. Maybe there's a golf cart or something someone can pick me up in, but just making it like every little bit, and then like going to adoration and sitting there and being like, all right, Lord, like, I need you to know that I don't think I can make it, and just giving that over to him and then letting him shine through that, you know? And it's like, I wasn't supposed to be dynamic that day. Yeah. Like, I wasn't supposed to walk around stage and proclaim in a very strong way. It was a weak, pathetic clinging to the podium and being like, just so you guys know. And then afterwards, like, talking to people and hearing their stories, like, I had to sit, like, I couldn't stand, like, and just sitting and trying to hear it. But like, I don't know, for whatever reason, he wanted a broken vessel that day. Mm-hmm. He didn't want me to have strength. So maybe if I was having a good day, it would not have been relatable, or someone would be like, I don't get that at all. But because I was where I was, then someone's like, yeah, that's me. I get that. Yeah. You know, right before I went to adoration, And I had this pretty necklace Matt got me, but it's heavy. It has like a lot of like stones, and I like it, but it got really caught up with my miraculous medal. And I just got stuck, and I was like, oh, I can't. And so I'm so distracted trying to pray. There's a Dominican sitting a couple, was she Dominican? I think she was Dominican. Either Dominican or, yeah, she was a Dominican, a couple seats over. And so I just scooted over, and she was praying very quietly in adoration, as you would expect a nun to be doing. And I was like, sister, I'm so sorry. Can you free me? I'm stuck. And she went and talked to Matt afterwards, and she was saying how in her prayer, she's like, I don't think I'm helping anyone. I don't think I'm doing anything. Like, Lord, like, use me. Help me. As I go to her, and I'm like, could you free me? I desperately need help.
Yes.
And it's like, for me, like, she undid my necklace and she freed me, and it was great, and I was able to take it off, but I felt like so heavy and like it was stuck and just annoyed. But it's like the Lord can use my inconvenience, and then I felt bad bothering her, but because I did bother her,
It was an answered prayer.
it was an answer to her prayer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that we don't know all those ripple effects.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think a lot of this is the Lord, there's so much that he's going to use. And I am not the best at articulating things or putting it, I don't know. Like, I don't know the answer, but it's like, okay, I'm not afraid to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. And so, like, let's just have it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think the majority of people that are suffering from chronic pain or chronic fatigue or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or Pott's disease or all these other things, like, they don't have someone else that's doing it.
Yeah.
They don't know someone else. And so it's like, okay, we can have that conversation.
Yeah. 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 Often when I chat with my husband about this and I'm, feeling like, just burdened at the amount that I'm having to ask him to help or other people to help, he'll say, look, there's two categories, sin or not sin. If it's sin, you bring it to God and he takes care of it. And if it's not sin, that's his business. And so, like, it's his business what he wants to do with you, with us.
Oh,
and
I like that.
yeah, it's been so helpful and freeing for me, just a framework like, look, he has his reasons, and that nun, he brought you two together in a way that neither of you would have expected or wanted. Like, she would want to feel naturally helpful, you would want to be not sick, but he has his own thing that he's doing, and we don't see all of it, and I think, I often find myself thinking about when I was younger. I'm sorry, he's just
no, you're good. Can I help? What do you?
It's okay. He just keeps falling out there. He got it. Okay.
He's still learning.
He is.
And that's us. We're still learning. We're still trying to figure it out.
It's so true. I know. But I think about my reversion in college, and when I would think all these grand things about suffering, and I just, of course, in that experience, you're so open to suffering. You even would say that you welcome suffering. You want to be a saint. But for some reason, the way that you conceive of yourself suffering is always with this heroic courage, and in a way that doesn't negatively affect others.
Yeah.
You can just be there sacrificing and giving to people.
And it's just you that's affected.
Exactly.
And that's not it.
Exactly. And I never would have imagined that this would be the way, all I want to do is homeschool and make this beautiful home and bake bread and just give to friends and things, and being really limited in those ways is not only humbling, but it's a grappling with suffering itself that I didn't ever expect.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's his business, it really is the ways that he sees fit to give us what he gives us. And I have to remind myself that every day, because it's still a relearning. But
and then also feeling like when someone asks how have you been or what have you been up? I mean, you grew up human, so that's huge. So that's massive. You've been doing something. It's what have you been up to?
Yeah.
Look at this. I feel like when people ask me, and it's same old, surviving.
Right.
I'm surviving day by day.
Yeah.
And I don't know what concretely I'm doing. I'm trying to teach my kids to read and arithmetic, and I'm trying to show them what's true, good, and beautiful, but I'm failing in it more than I'm succeeding in it.
Yeah. Well, you think you're failing in
That's
it more.
true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I know. And you want to be like this radiant, face for the kingdom. You want to be, I feel like that in regard to, just all that I wish I could do to show how beautiful the faith is, how beautiful family life can be, and when you feel like you don't have much to report outside of Oren, but it's just like, we're just...
Well, that's the greatest. I mean, he is amazing. That's huge. Like, you don't need to do anything productive for like 5 years. And you're like, I created this. I help this grow and nurture in my body.
Which itself is just such a gift, because I didn't know if I'd ever be able to have another. But it's, but yeah, outside of just the pregnancy and everything, it's like we're, bare minimum some days with homeschooling and the kids, and there's not much to report. I don't have a lot exciting going on, and I feel that as well in chats with my family and things. I wish I could I wish I would have more to share, but it's his
Would you mind telling us about his siblings and just what it's been like?
Oh, sure, yeah.
I feel like, I know we're talking a lot about suffering with our bodies and stuff, but I think also, I know I have so many, I've had so many miscarriages. I know you have as well, but just kind of sharing.
Yes, of course. Well, we have 3 living children, and we're always hopeful to have more, but we've had quite a few miscarriages. And when I found out that I was expecting him last April, we were thrilled, but also there's just, if you've been through lots of miscarriages or even one, there's just so much trepidation around that early positive test, because it's so precarious. And so we were overjoyed, but also I just was sensitive to everything going on in my body. And the test turned positive so early that I suspected something more was up, more than usual, because I was like 7 days past ovulation and there was like a really solid line. So when I went to the first scan, I was able to have an early scan because of the other miscarriages. They went out and got the OB to come in and speak to us about the results of the scan. So it was another red flag that not everything was normal at the beginning. And he just started trying to suppress a chuckle looking at the screen, and he just said, "Well, what do you guys think is going on here?" I could see enough from the image to know that it was probably twins. I'm not sure, so we ventured twins, and he said, "No, actually triplets." It's triplets. There were 2 identical and 1 fraternal. And we had not been on any sort of fertility treatments or drugs or anything. We were still just trying to conceive naturally with NFP. And I think he's so toasty. His hair's all sweaty. Take off your socks. So we couldn't believe it. It seemed like not only an answered prayer, but tripled. The kids were so thrilled. Your kids were so thrilled. We were so excited.
Yay, one for each of us to hold.
I know. But also in total shock and not knowing how I would ever do it, because they were talking about inducing at 32 weeks and a lot of bed rest because of the type of identical twin pregnancy it was. It was like a monoamniotic pregnancy, so there was high risk. And
never mind all your other health stuff on top of it.
I know.
Yeah.
And so it was even more humbling, because I feel no one's ever said this, but I feel like when you do have health stuff like this, people really question whether it's wise to bring another child into the world. And I think every family has to just discern that for themselves and bring that to the Lord, because He'll speak to it in everybody's situation. But yeah, here we were, navigating health issues, and all of a sudden expecting triplets. And then as the weeks passed, we lost one at 8 weeks and another at 9 weeks. And each were devastating in their own right, but only like upped the amount of stress and concern for the surviving ones. And it was such a rocky beginning to his life and to that pregnancy. So we made it to the 12-week mark, and we were in Florida actually, and saw Dr. Kyer, and I had a massive hemorrhage there, and I thought for sure he did not make it, because I just soaked the seat of the rental car all through my dress. They got me into a wheelchair at the ER, and I soaked through that. I mean, there was so much blood. Out of every miscarriage I've had, I was most convinced that this one was obviously a miscarriage, and just so devastated, like that gut punch that you know so well. Like, it's just, there's nothing like it. Just now, like, everything takes a different shape in your mind, and it's just like this little person that is no more, and it all happened secretly inside me, you know, and it's just So I was lying there for the ultrasound to confirm the reason for all this bleeding, and they wouldn't show us the screen, you know, because that's protocol. They're not supposed to tell us anything. But my husband just craned his neck, and he was able to look around, and he was holding my hand, and he just squeezed it and raised his eyebrows and smiled a little bit, and I knew that he had seen something. And sure enough, his heart was beating just strong as ever, and it was a subchorionic bleed, so it was a hemorrhage near him, but it wasn't a loss of the pregnancy. So he's such a little miracle.
He is.
I just can't believe he's here.
And he's so perfect.
Well, I know. He's such a gift. So, and you know, I look at him sometimes, and every little thing he does, it's like this with all babies. You just rejoice. Like, he opened his eyes.
I know.
Oh, he's breathing.
I know.
He grew more hair today, and I feel like that's how the Lord is with us, even when we can't get out of our chair.
Yeah.
It's just like, all we have to do is just look at him, just exist, just breathe, and he loves us with a love so much more than
it's
than
not
we
what we
feel
can
for our
do,
own.
it's simply who we are,
Exactly.
and rejoicing in him. And he's such a perfect little miracle. And and even just praying through that, and all of us just wanting him to be okay. And
I know.
and then who knows, God knows in his goodness, he has saints looking out for him, you know, his siblings up there, and maybe your body needed that extra bit of, I don't know, hormones, or he needed more help, and he couldn't have made it here this far without them with him.
It's so true.
But I think that's a really good point. We are not, I think it's easy for us to look at the ways we're not who we used to be, and we don't have the energy or stamina that we used to have, or be able to do things. But it's the Lord's just calling us to be, and by him just being and being so dependent on you, he can't do anything. Come on, please. He would totally not survive if you just laid him on the floor and walked away. And it's and we feel, I don't know, I often feel so bad for those around me that I am asking so much more of. And it's the Lord rejoices in it, and it's good. Each of your kids was this dependent on you at one point. So now us being dependent on them, they're going to be learning through it. So
Yes. Yeah. It's so true. One of my friends is a Catholic musician, and she doesn't record as much as she used to now, because she's in those prime years. But her name's Danielle Rose, and she recorded a collection of songs about Mother Teresa's life and her writings. And there's such, oh buddy, it's okay. songs is called You're Not a Burden, and it's taken from one of Mother Teresa's letters, and the refrain is just, you're not a burden, you're a blessing to love. And it just references Mother Teresa's, like, her encounter with every suffering person was not an act of, like, pity as we would conceive of it, or like her stooping down to someone's level and being charitable, you know, for her own sanctity. But it was a real encounter, like the true sense of charity, of her receiving that person, as a living Word of God who she felt privileged to serve, as if she'd be privileged to serve the Lord, you know. And it changes everything just thinking of it in that light. And it's hard to do with yourself when you feel like the burden, but it's but to think of it that way, like it's like your encounter with the nun, like it's a blessing in some mysterious way. To be in relationship with this person, even if they're the ones serving me. You know.
And even if it's a quick, like, it was like not even a minute encounter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just taking off a necklace.
It wasn't massive, but it was a burden she lifted from me because it was heavy and I was stuck and I wouldn't have been able to pray and finish writing my talk. Like, yeah. And even just the wording of it, the fact that I didn't say, could you take the necklace off, but could you free me?
Yes.
And
exactly.
like, it's just like, oh. And so much of, I think, being a sister is not necessarily this encounter, but it's this, and like raising the entire church up, right?
Yeah.
And no, I wanna find that song. Does she have it places?
Yeah, you can find it on Spotify.
Okay, cool. I'll find it. If someone finds it, put a link in the description below so we can all listen to it. I'll have to listen to it. Yeah. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. This was
anytime.
Pure gift.
It was
Pure gift.